The blizzard hit Fort Bowie, Arizona, with a fury that no one had seen in 30 years, turning the dusty desert town into a frozen wasteland that December night in 1883. Amelia Carter stumbled through the knee-deep snow, her threadbare coat doing nothing to keep out the biting wind that tore through the main street. Her fingers had gone numb hours ago, and her teeth chattered so violently she thought they might crack. The town was dark, shuttered tight against the unseasonable storm that had swept down from the mountains without warning. She had been traveling for 3 weeks, running from a past that still haunted her dreams, and her meager savings had run out 2 days ago in a nameless town 50 miles back. The livery stable loomed ahead, its large doors slightly ajar, and Amelia made her decision in an instant. She would freeze to death if she stayed outside another hour. Pushing through the snow, she slipped inside the building and immediately felt the difference. It was not warm, not by any measure, but the walls blocked the wind, and the body heat of the horses created a temperature that would not kill her. She found a corner in the back, behind a stack of hay bales, and burrowed into the straw like a wounded animal. Her whole body shook as she pulled hay over herself, trying to create some kind of insulation. The horses shifted in their stalls, aware of her presence but unbothered. Exhaustion pulled at her, and despite the cold, despite the fear, Amelia felt her eyes closing. She did not know how long she had been asleep when the lantern light woke her. Voices carried through the stable, and she pressed herself deeper into the hay, hoping whoever it was would complete their business and leave. Her heart hammered in her chest. "Easy now, Dakota," a man's voice said, low and soothing. "I know you do not like this weather any more than I do, but we have got to check that shoe." Amelia heard the sound of a stall opening, then the careful footsteps of someone leading a horse. She held her breath, willing herself to be invisible. "What in the world?" The voice was closer now, and the lantern light swung in her direction. "Someone in here?" She squeezed her eyes shut like a child, as if not seeing him meant he could not see her. "Madam, I can see you there in the hay. You hurt?" The voice held no threat, only concern, and something about that made tears spring to Amelia's eyes. She had been so alone for so long, had trusted no one, had expected nothing but hardness from the world. This simple question, asked with genuine care, broke something loose inside her. "I am sorry," she managed through her chattering teeth. "I will leave. I just needed to get out of the cold for a bit. I will go now." "Go? In this storm?" The man moved closer, and in the lantern light, Amelia could see him properly now. He was tall, probably in his late 20s, with dark hair that fell across his forehead and eyes that held a warmth she had not seen in a long time. He wore a heavy coat and sturdy boots, and there was something solid about him, something that spoke of reliability. "You will be dead before you make it to the end of the street. How long have you been out in this weather?" "I do not know," Amelia admitted, her voice small. "Hours, I think, maybe longer." The man swore softly, setting his lantern down. "Can you stand? Can you walk?" "I think so." "Then come with me. My name is Grant Garrett, and I own this livery. My house is just behind it. And you need to get warm before you lose any fingers or toes." Amelia tried to stand, but her legs would not cooperate. The cold had seeped too deep into her bones. She made it halfway up before collapsing back into the hay. Grant did not hesitate. He moved forward and scooped her up as if she weighed nothing, cradling her against his chest. "Hold on," he said simply. She wanted to protest, wanted to maintain some shred of dignity, but her body would not obey. Instead, she found herself leaning into his warmth, her frozen hands clutching at his coat. He carried her out a back door she had not noticed, across a small yard already filling with fresh snow, and into a modest house that glowed with warmth and light. The heat hit her like a physical thing, and she gasped. "Easy," Grant said, setting her down carefully in a chair near the stove. "Warm up slowly, or it will hurt worse. Let me see your hands." Amelia held them out, and even she was shocked by how blue her fingers looked. Grant examined them carefully, his own hands gentle despite their size and obvious strength. Can you feel this? He asked, pressing lightly on each fingertip. Barely. That is actually good. Means you have got feeling left. We need to warm them up gradually. He moved to the stove and poured water from a kettle into a basin, testing the temperature with his elbow. Put your hands in here. It will hurt. I am warning you now, but it is necessary. When Amelia placed her hands in the water, she understood his warning. The pain was immediate and intense, a burning sensation that made her cry out. I know, Grant said quietly. I know it hurts, but you have to keep them in there. Here, focus on something else. What is your name? Amelia, she gasped. Amelia Carter. Where are you from, Amelia Carter? Missouri, originally, but I have been traveling for a while now. Traveling alone? There was no judgment in his voice, only curiosity. Yes. He nodded, moving to add wood to the stove. Feet next. Can you get your boots off? Amelia looked down at her worn boots, laces crusted with ice. Her hands were still in the water, and she felt helpless as a newborn. I will do it, Grant said, kneeling in front of her. He worked carefully, breaking the ice away from the laces, loosening them slowly. When he pulled the boots off, Amelia saw that her stockings were wet through. These too, he said, and there was something in his voice that made her look at him. His eyes met hers, and she saw only respect there, only kindness. I will turn around. You get those stockings off, and there is a blanket on the chair behind you. Wrap your feet in it, then put them in this basin here. He suited action to words, turning his back while he prepared another basin of tepid water. Amelia moved as quickly as her frozen fingers would allow, stripping off the wet stockings and wrapping her feet in the thick wool blanket before lowering them into the water. The same burning pain shot through her, but she bit her lip and endured it. All right, she said softly. Grant turned back around, studying her with an assessing gaze that felt almost medical in its impersonality. Your face is frostbitten too. Here. He wrung out a cloth in warm water and brought it to her, pressing it gently against her cheeks. The pain made her eyes water, but his touch was so careful that she found herself leaning into it. Thank you, she whispered. No need to thank me for basic human decency, Grant replied, but his voice was gruff, as if her gratitude made him uncomfortable. When is the last time you ate? Amelia had to think about it. Yesterday morning, I think. Maybe the morning before. It all runs together. He made a sound low in his throat that might have been anger or frustration, but when he spoke, his voice was gentle. I am going to make you something hot. Soup, I think. And coffee. You sit there and keep those hands and feet in the water. Do not take them out until I tell you. She watched him move around the small kitchen with practiced efficiency. He was clearly a man used to caring for himself, measuring out ingredients without hesitation, stoking the stove to the right temperature. The smell of coffee filled the air first, rich and dark, and Amelia's stomach cramped with hunger. You live alone? She asked, partly to distract herself from the pain, partly because she was curious. I do now, Grant said, not turning around. Lost my wife 3 years back. Fever took her. I am sorry. It was a long time ago. But the way he said it told her it was not long enough, that the wound was still there. Been running the livery by myself since then. It keeps me busy, and busy is good. The soup began to simmer, and Grant poured her a cup of coffee, bringing it to her carefully. Can you hold this? Amelia flexed her fingers experimentally. They were starting to pink up, the feeling returning in sharp needles of sensation. I think so. She took the cup from him, wrapping both hands around its warmth. The coffee was strong and hot, and the first sip was like coming back to life. The storm was not supposed to hit this hard, Grant said, returning to the stove. Weather has been strange all year. We get cold snaps in the winter here, but this is something else entirely. Snow in the desert does not usually stick like this. I did not know where else to go, Amelia admitted. The boarding house was full, and I could not afford the hotel even if they had rooms. I saw the livery and thought maybe I could just wait out the worst of it. You would have died, Grant said bluntly. Another few hours in that cold, you would have just fallen asleep and not woken up. The stark truth of it hung in the air between them. Amelia swallowed hard. I know. He brought her a bowl of soup, thick with vegetables and chunks of beef, and a spoon. Eat slowly. Your stomach is not going to be happy if you rush it. She wanted to devour it, wanted to shovel it into her mouth as fast as possible, but she followed his instructions. Each spoonful was heaven, warmth spreading through her chest and belly. Grant sat across from her with his own bowl, eating in silence. What brought you to Fort Bowie? He asked after a while. Amelia considered lying, considered giving him one of the many stories she had rehearsed during her long journey. But something about this man, about his quiet kindness, and the way he had cared for her without asking for anything in return, made her want to tell the truth. I was running away, she said quietly, from a man who thought he owned me, a man my father promised me to when I was 16. I am 22 now, and I spent 6 years planning how to leave. When my father died last year, there was nothing holding me anymore, so I took what little money he had hidden away and I ran. Grant's expression did not change, but something flickered in his eyes. He following you? I do not think so. He is not the kind of man to chase after something once it is gone. He will just find another girl to marry, another family that needs his money badly enough to sell their daughter. The bitterness in her voice surprised even her. You were right to run, Grant said simply. A woman should not be property, should not be traded like a horse or a piece of land. Not everyone sees it that way. Then not everyone is right. He stood, collecting her empty bowl. You can take the bed tonight. I will sleep out here by the stove. I cannot take your bed, Amelia protested. You have already done so much. You are taking the bed, Grant said, and there was a firmness in his voice that brooked no argument. You need proper rest, and that means a real bed with real blankets. My conscience could not take anything else. Then at least let me pay you back somehow. I do not have money, but I can work. I can cook and clean, and— We will talk about all that tomorrow, Grant interrupted gently. Right now, you need to sleep. Come on, let me show you where everything is. He helped her stand, and Amelia realized how weak she still was. Her legs trembled, and she had to lean on him as he guided her to the small bedroom at the back of the house. The bed was neatly made, the room sparse but clean. There are more blankets in that chest if you need them, Grant said, pointing. Chamber pot under the bed. If you need anything in the night, you call out and I will hear you. Thank you, Amelia said again, knowing the words were inadequate, but having nothing else to offer. Grant nodded and pulled the door closed behind him. Amelia stood in the quiet room for a moment, hardly able to believe her change in fortune. Just hours ago, she had been preparing to die in a livery stable. Now she stood in a warm bedroom, her belly full, her hands and feet tingling with returning circulation. She changed out of her damp traveling dress and into the nightgown she found folded on the pillow, clearly left there by Grant. It was too big, made for a larger woman, and Amelia realized it must have belonged to his wife. The thought made her heart ache for him. The bed was soft, the blankets thick and warm. Amelia sank into them and felt her body begin to truly relax for the first time in weeks. Outside, the wind howled and the snow fell, but here she was safe. Here she was warm. She fell asleep thinking of kind brown eyes and gentle hands, and for the first time since she had fled Missouri, her dreams were not nightmares. When Amelia woke, pale winter light was filtering through the small window. The storm had passed, and she could hear sounds from the main room, the clatter of pots and the smell of frying bacon. Her body ached in 1,000 places, the aftermath of yesterday's cold, but the deep chill was gone. She dressed in her traveling clothes, which someone had hung near the stove to dry, and ventured out into the main room. Grant stood at the stove, his back to her, cooking breakfast. "Morning," he said without turning around. "How are you feeling?" "Sore," Amelia admitted, "but alive, thanks to you. Check your fingers and toes. Any dark spots? Any places that do not have feeling?" She examined her extremities carefully. Everything was pink and healthy, if tender. "No, everything seems all right." "Good, you were lucky. A few more hours and it could have been very different." He plated up eggs and bacon, setting a plate at the table for her. "Eat, then we need to talk." There was something in his tone that made Amelia nervous as she sat down. Had he changed his mind about helping her? Was he going to send her back out into the cold? Grant sat across from her, his own plate in front of him. "I have been thinking," he said slowly. "You said you needed work, and it occurs to me that I could use some help. The livery is busy enough that I am running myself ragged, trying to keep up with everything. Boarding horses, shoeing them, fixing wagons, and keeping the books. Plus, trying to keep my own house in order. I am not doing a very good job at any of it." Amelia's heart began to beat faster. "You are offering me a job?" "Room and board plus wages," Grant said. "Nothing fancy, but enough to save up if you are planning to move on eventually. You can stay in the spare room here, and I will expect you to help with the house and maybe some of the lighter work at the livery. I do not expect you to shoe horses or anything like that, but there is plenty else that needs doing." "Why?" Amelia asked. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" Grant was quiet for a moment, staring down at his plate. "My wife, Sarah. She was always taking in strays. People passing through who needed a meal, travelers who got caught in bad weather, anyone who needed help. She used to say that we were all just one bad day away from being the person who needed help, and that we should give it freely when we could." He looked up, meeting Amelia's eyes. "I have not been very good at that since she died. I have been keeping to myself, keeping my head down, just trying to get through each day. But last night, finding you in that livery, it reminded me of what she used to say, and I think she would have wanted me to help you. So that is what I am doing." Tears burned at the back of Amelia's eyes. "I will work hard," she promised. "I will earn every bit of what you give me." "I have got no doubt about that," Grant said with a small smile. "Now eat your breakfast before it gets cold. We have got a lot to do today." The days that followed fell into a pattern that surprised Amelia with its comfort. She woke early, started the coffee, and had breakfast ready when Grant came in from the morning check of the horses. They ate together, planning the day's work, and then she would tackle the house while he handled the heavier work at the livery. She discovered that she liked keeping house, liked the satisfaction of seeing the rooms transform under her care. Grant had been living like a man alone for too long, and it showed. But Amelia scrubbed and organized and mended, and slowly the little house began to feel like a home again. In the afternoons, she would bring lunch out to the livery and help Grant with whatever he needed. Sometimes it was simple tasks like sorting tack or organizing the feed room. Other times he taught her how to groom the horses properly, how to check their hooves for stones, how to read their moods and body language. "Horses are honest," Grant told her one afternoon as they worked side by side, brushing down a mare named Rosie. "They do not lie or pretend. If they like you, they show it. If they do not trust you, they show that too. I have always preferred their company to most people." "Most people?" Amelia asked, glancing at him with a smile. Grant's ears went a bit red. Present company excluded. They fell into an easy friendship, built on shared work and quiet conversations. Grant was not a man of many words, but when he spoke, it was with thought and care. He told her about growing up on a ranch in Texas, about learning the horse trade from his father, about meeting Sarah at a church social and knowing within 5 minutes that she was the woman he would marry. "She was so full of life," he said one evening, as they sat by the stove after dinner, always laughing, always finding joy in the smallest things. When she died, it felt like all the color went out of the world. How did you keep going? Amelia asked softly. Grant was quiet for a long moment. I did not really. I just existed. Got up, did the work, went to bed, repeated it all the next day. I think maybe I have been doing that for 3 years now. He looked at her then, really looked at her. But these past few weeks since you have been here, it has felt different. Like maybe I am actually living again instead of just going through the motions. The words hung in the air between them, and Amelia felt her breath catch. There was something in Grant's eyes, something warm and wondering, and she realized with a start that she felt it too. At some point over the past weeks, this man had stopped being just her employer, just her rescuer. He had become someone she looked forward to seeing each morning, someone whose smile made her heart beat faster, someone she thought about when she was supposed to be focused on other things. I feel the same way, she admitted quietly. Being here, working with you, it is the first time in my life I have felt truly safe, truly valued for who I am, rather than what I can provide someone else. Grant reached out slowly, giving her plenty of time to pull away, and took her hand. His palm was warm and calloused from years of hard work. Amelia, I do not want to presume anything, and I know the situation between us is complicated, you working for me and living in my house, but I would be lying if I said I have not developed feelings for you. Strong feelings. Amelia's heart was racing now. What kind of feelings? The kind that make me think about a future again, Grant said, his voice rough with emotion. The kind that make me want to be a better man. The kind that make me hope you might feel the same way. She turned her hand in his, threading their fingers together. I do feel the same way. I have tried not to. I have tried to tell myself it is just gratitude, just the relief of being safe after being scared for so long. But it is more than that. You make me happy, Grant. You make me feel like I could build a real life here. The smile that broke across Grant's face was like the sun coming out from behind clouds. Can I kiss you? Yes, Amelia breathed. He leaned forward slowly, cupping her face with his free hand, and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was gentle, almost tentative, as if he was afraid she might disappear. Amelia leaned into it, her free hand coming up to rest on his chest, feeling his heart hammering beneath her palm. When they pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. I have been wanting to do that for 2 weeks, Grant admitted. I have been wanting you to do it for 2 weeks, Amelia replied with a laugh. They sat together by the stove, hands clasped, talking long into the night. They spoke of childhoods and dreams, of fears and hopes, of all the things that made them who they were. And with each revelation, each shared story, Amelia felt the connection between them deepen. The winter stretched on, and with it, the relationship between Amelia and Grant grew and strengthened. They courted in the old-fashioned way, with stolen kisses and long conversations, with small gestures of affection and care. Grant brought her wildflowers when the first blooms pushed through the melting snow. Amelia baked his favorite pie and left it cooling on the windowsill. They attended church together on Sundays, and the whole town began to take notice of the livery owner and his pretty housekeeper. Not everyone approved. There were whispers, particularly from some of the older women, about propriety and appearances. But Grant did not care. Let them talk, he said, when Amelia expressed worry about damaging his reputation. I know my heart, and I know yours. That is all that matters. In March, when the desert began to warm and the first hints of spring appeared, Grant took Amelia on a picnic out to a canyon overlook where the view stretched for miles. They ate lunch watching the hawks circle overhead, and then Grant pulled a small box from his pocket. I loved Sarah with all my heart, he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. And when she died, I thought that was it for me. Thought I would spend the rest of my life alone, just working until I dropped. But then you stumbled into my livery on the worst night of the year and you changed everything. You brought light back into my life, Amelia. You made me remember what it feels like to hope, to dream, to love. He opened the box, revealing a simple gold band with a small diamond. I am not a rich man, and I know this ring is not much, but it comes with all of me, with my whole heart and my promise to love you and care for you for as long as I draw breath. Will you marry me? Tears were streaming down Amelia's face, but she was smiling wider than she ever had in her life. Yes, she said. Yes, absolutely, yes. Grant slipped the ring onto her finger, and then he was kissing her, and she was kissing him back, and the whole world felt bright and full of possibility. They were married a month later in the small church in Fort Bowie, with half the town in attendance. Amelia wore a simple white dress that the seamstress had helped her make, and Grant wore his best suit, his hair slicked back and his face clean-shaven. When the preacher pronounced them man and wife, the kiss they shared was met with cheers and applause. The reception was held at the town hall, with food and drink and music. Amelia danced until her feet hurt, swept up in the joy of the day, in the reality of her new life. When Grant whirled her around the floor, she looked up into his face and saw her whole future reflected there. Happy? He asked, pulling her close. Happier than I ever thought possible, she replied truthfully. They left the celebration early, walking hand in hand back to the house that was now truly theirs, and that night they became husband and wife in every sense of the word. Grant was gentle and patient, mindful of her inexperience, and Amelia marveled at the tenderness with which he touched her, the reverence in his gaze. I love you, she whispered, as they lay tangled together afterward, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. I love you too, Grant replied, pressing a kiss to her hair. More than I have words to say. The first year of their marriage was not without challenges. They were still learning each other, still figuring out how to navigate life as a team rather than as individuals. There were disagreements about money and work, about how to handle difficult customers and pushy neighbors, but they learned to talk through their problems, to listen to each other, to compromise. The livery prospered under their joint management. Amelia had a head for numbers and organization, and she streamlined the business in ways Grant had never thought of. They hired a young man named Tommy to help with some of the heavier work, which freed up Grant to focus on the skilled jobs like shoeing and training. In the evenings, they would sit together on the porch of their little house, watching the sun set over the desert and talk about their dreams for the future. I would like to expand eventually, Grant said one night. Maybe buy some land, start breeding horses instead of just boarding and training them. There is good money in breeding if you do it right. We would need a bigger barn, Amelia mused, and more pasture land. But I think it is possible if we save carefully. What about you? Grant asked, turning to look at her. What are your dreams? Amelia was quiet for a moment, considering. A year ago, her only dream had been survival, had been escape. Now her world had expanded in ways she never could have imagined. I want a family, she said softly. I want children running around this house, laughter and noise and all the chaos that comes with it. I want to build something lasting here, something that will outlive us both. Grant's hand found hers, squeezing gently. I want that too. All of it. Good, Amelia said with a smile. Then I suppose we should start working on making it happen. They tried for a baby throughout that first year, but month after month, Amelia's courses came as regular as clockwork. She tried not to be discouraged, tried to remind herself that these things took time, but she could not help the pang of disappointment she felt each time. Grant was endlessly patient and supportive. It will happen when it is meant to happen, he would say, holding her when she cried. And in the meantime, I get to keep you all to myself. In their second year of marriage, they made good on their dream of expansion. They found a piece of land just outside town, 20 acres with a creek running through it and good grass for grazing. It took most of their savings as a down payment, but they both knew it was the right move. Building the new barn was a community effort. Grant called in favors with friends and customers, and on a blazing Saturday in June, 20 men showed up with tools and materials. By Sunday evening, the frame was up. Over the next month, they worked in the evenings and on weekends to finish it, and by August they had a structure that was the envy of everyone who saw it. They moved their operation to the new property, keeping the old livery in town as a satellite location managed by Tommy. The extra space allowed them to take on more boarders, and Grant began actively looking for good breeding stock. It was hard work, exhausting work, but they attacked it together with determination and joy. Amelia learned to read bloodlines and conformation, to spot a good horse from a mediocre one. Grant taught her everything he knew, and she proved to be an eager and capable student. "You have got a good eye," he told her one day, as they evaluated a mare someone had brought for potential breeding. "Better than mine, if I am being honest." "I learned from the best," Amelia replied with a grin. In October of that year, Amelia woke feeling queasy. She barely made it outside before losing her breakfast. Grant found her sitting on the porch steps, pale and shaky. "That is the third morning this week," he said, concern evident in his voice. "Maybe we should get the doctor out here." But Amelia was doing calculations in her head, counting back weeks, and a slow smile was spreading across her face. "I do not think we need a doctor. At least not yet. Grant, I think I might be pregnant." The look on his face was one she would remember forever, shock and hope and joy all mixed together. "Really, you think so?" "I am late," she said. "And the sickness and the way I have been so tired lately." "I think so, yes." Grant sat down beside her on the steps and pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. "A baby," he whispered. "We are going to have a baby." The doctor confirmed it 2 weeks later. Amelia was about 2 months along, and if everything went well, they would have a child in late April or early May. Grant became absurdly protective almost immediately. He did not want Amelia lifting anything heavy, riding horses, or doing any of the more strenuous work around the ranch. She protested at first, but the worry in his eyes made her soften. "I cannot lose you," he said one night as they lay in bed, his hand resting gently on her still flat stomach. "I cannot lose either of you, so please let me fuss. Let me take care of you." "All right," Amelia agreed, "but you have to promise not to treat me like I am made of glass. I am pregnant, not dying." "Deal," Grant said, and sealed it with a kiss. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Amelia's morning sickness faded after the first trimester, and she felt better than she had in months. Her belly grew steadily, and by January she was waddling more than walking. Grant thought she had never looked more beautiful. They spent the winter preparing the nursery, painting the walls a soft yellow, and building a cradle from cottonwood that Grant cut and seasoned himself. Amelia sewed tiny clothes and blankets, her heart swelling with each small garment. "What if I am not a good mother?" she asked one night, giving voice to the fear that had been growing alongside the baby. "What if I am not a good father?" Grant countered. "We will figure it out together, the same way we figure out everything else, and we will love this child with everything we have. That is all any parent can do." In late April, on a night when the spring wind was blowing warm from the south, Amelia's water broke. Grant rode into town at breakneck speed to fetch the midwife, then rode back even faster. The labor was long and hard, lasting through the night and into the next day. Grant stayed by Amelia's side the entire time, holding her hand, wiping her face with cool cloths, whispering encouragement. "I cannot do this!" Amelia gasped at one point, exhausted and in pain. "I cannot. It is too much." "You can," Grant said firmly. "You are the strongest person I know. You survived things that would have broken most people. You can do this. I am right here with you." And when the midwife finally said, "Push one more time," and Amelia bore down with everything she had left, The reward was the most beautiful sound in the world, the angry wail of a newborn baby. "It is a boy," the midwife announced, placing the squirming infant on Amelia's chest. "A healthy, perfect boy." Amelia looked down at her son, at his red face and waving fists, and felt love so intense it was almost painful. Grant leaned over them both, tears streaming down his face, one finger gently touching the baby's tiny hand. The infant immediately gripped it, and Grant let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "He is perfect," Grant breathed. "Amelia, he is absolutely perfect." They named him Gabriel Grant Garrett, and he became the center of their world. Those first months were a blur of sleepless nights and endless feedings, of dirty diapers and worried consultations over every little sniffle. But there was also joy beyond measure. Gabriel's first smile, the way he would track them with his eyes, the warm weight of him sleeping on Amelia's chest. Grant was a natural father, patient and gentle, and completely besotted with his son. He would spend hours just holding Gabriel, talking to him in a low, soothing voice, telling him about the horses and the ranch and all the things they would do together when he was older. "You are going to be a great horseman," Grant told his son one evening as Amelia watched from the doorway. "And a good man, kind and strong and true. And you are going to know every day of your life that you are loved." Amelia felt her heart swell. This life they had built, this family they had created, it was more than she had ever dared to hope for. As Gabriel grew, so did the ranch. They acquired 2 excellent mares and a young stallion with impeccable bloodlines and began their breeding program in earnest. The first crop of foals was born when Gabriel was 2, and he toddled around the barn, fascinated by the gangly babies with their long legs and soft noses. "Gentle," Amelia would remind him constantly. "Soft touches. These are babies just like you were a baby." Gabriel would nod seriously and pat the foals with chubby hands, giggling when they nuzzled him looking for treats. Life fell into a rhythm that was demanding but deeply satisfying. They worked hard, harder than Amelia had ever worked in her life, but it was work that mattered, work that was building something lasting. And every night, no matter how tired they were, Grant would pull her close and tell her he loved her. When Gabriel was 4, Amelia discovered she was pregnant again. This time the news was met with excitement rather than anxious hope. They knew what to expect now, knew that they could handle whatever came. The second pregnancy was easier than the first, and in March, Amelia delivered a daughter they named Anna Claire Garrett. She had her mother's dark hair and her father's warm brown eyes, and Gabriel was immediately smitten with his baby sister. "My baby," he would say, patting her gently. "My Anna, our baby," Amelia would correct with a smile. "Our family." The years that followed were full and rich. Gabriel grew into a thoughtful, kind-hearted boy who loved the horses as much as his father did. Anna was more adventurous, more likely to be found climbing trees or trying to ride horses she had no business being on. Together they filled the house with noise and laughter and the occasional argument, and Amelia and Grant would not have changed a thing. The ranch prospered. Their horses gained a reputation for quality and temperament, and buyers came from as far away as California and Texas to purchase foals. They hired more help, expanded the house to accommodate their growing family, and became pillars of the Fort Bowie community. But it was not the success or the prosperity that mattered most to Amelia. It was the quiet moments breakfast around the kitchen table with her family, Gabriel reading to Anna in the evening, Grant coming in from the barn with that soft smile that was reserved just for her. It was the feeling of his hand finding hers in the dark, the sound of their children's laughter, the knowledge that she was exactly where she was meant to be. One evening, when Gabriel was 10 and Anna was 6, they all sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the desert in shades of gold and pink. Gabriel was whittling a piece of wood, Anna was playing with a doll, and Grant had his arm around Amelia's shoulders. "Tell us the story again," Anna demanded, as she did regularly. About how you met. Amelia and Grant exchanged a smile. They had told the story dozens of times, but their children never tired of hearing it. It was the coldest night I have ever experienced, Amelia began. A blizzard in the desert, which almost never happens. I had nowhere to go and no money for a room, so I snuck into a livery stable to get out of the cold. And Papa found you, Gabriel chimed in, knowing the story by heart. He did, Amelia confirmed. He could have sent me away. He could have let me take my chances in the storm, but instead, he brought me to his house, gave me hot food and a warm bed, and probably saved my life. And then you fell in love, Anna said dreamily. Not quite that fast, Grant said with a chuckle. But yes, eventually we fell in love. Your mother is the bravest person I have ever met. She traveled halfway across the country alone, running from a life she did not want, looking for something better. And somehow, by some miracle, she ended up in my stable on the worst night of the year. Best night of my life, Amelia corrected softly. Because it brought me to you. Grant pressed a kiss to her temple. Sarah used to say that we are all just one bad day away from being the person who needs help. That night, your mother was that person. But she did not just take the help I offered, she gave back tenfold. She brought this family to life. She made this house a home. She is the heart of everything we have built here. Amelia felt tears prick at her eyes. After all these years, Grant could still make her feel cherished with just a few words. I want a love story like yours, Anna declared. Someday, Amelia said, when you are much, much older. For now, you are staying right here with us. Anna giggled, and Gabriel rolled his eyes in the way that only a 10-year-old boy confronted with romance could manage. They sat together as the light faded and the stars began to appear, a family bound not just by blood, but by choice, by love, by the commitment they made to each other every single day. The years continued to roll by. Gabriel turned into a young man who was the spitting image of his father, with the same quiet strength and gentle way with horses. He took over more and more of the ranch work, proving himself capable and responsible. Anna grew into a spirited young woman who had a gift with animals that surpassed even Grant's. She could gentle the wildest horse, could read their moods and needs with uncanny accuracy. Amelia and Grant watched their children grow with a mixture of pride and bittersweet nostalgia. Where had the time gone? It seemed like just yesterday that Gabriel was a baby in her arms and Anna was toddling after her brother on unsteady legs. But if the swift passage of time was bittersweet, it was also deeply satisfying. They had built a good life, a strong life. The ranch was thriving, their children were healthy and happy, and their love for each other had only deepened with the years. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Grant took Amelia back to the canyon overlook where he had proposed all those years ago. They sat in the same spot, older now, and marked by 2 decades of hard work, but still deeply in love. I have been thinking, Grant said, taking her hand, about that night I found you in the livery, about how different my life would be if that blizzard had not hit, or if you had chosen a different town to stop in, or if I had decided to check the horses in the morning instead of that night. So many tiny things that had to line up perfectly for us to find each other. You think it was fate? Amelia asked. I do not know, Grant admitted. But I know I am grateful for it, whatever it was. You took a man who was just existing, just going through the motions, and you made him live again. You gave me a family, a purpose, a reason to greet each day with joy instead of dread. You are everything to me, Amelia. Everything. Amelia leaned her head on his shoulder. You saved my life that night, and I do not just mean from the cold. You saved me from a future that would have been nothing but misery and obligation. You gave me freedom, respect, partnership. You taught me what real love looks like. So I think we saved each other in the end. I like that, Grant said softly. We saved each other. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the hawks circle and the clouds drift across the impossibly blue sky. 20 years of marriage, 20 years of shared joys and sorrows, 20 years of building a life together. And if they were blessed with good health and fortune, they would have 20 more, or 30, or 40. I love you, Amelia said, the words as true now as they had been the first time she said them. I love you too, Grant replied. Today, tomorrow, and always. Gabriel married at 23, a sweet young woman from town named Rose Dalton, who loved the ranch as much as he did. The wedding was held at the ranch with the whole community in attendance, and Amelia cried happy tears as she watched her son pledge his life to his bride. Grant stood beside her, one arm around her waist, and she knew he was thinking the same thing she was. Their boy had become a man, had found his own love story to live out. A year later, Anna became engaged to a veterinarian from Tucson named David Monroe. He was a good man, serious and kind, and he clearly adored Anna. When he came to Grant to ask for permission to marry her, Grant put him through a thorough interrogation before finally agreeing with a handshake and a warning to treat his daughter well. I am losing my babies, Amelia said that night, allowing herself a moment of melancholy. We are not losing them, Grant corrected gently. We are watching them begin their own adventures, and we will still see them all the time. Gabriel and Rose are building a house on the north section of the ranch, and Anna has already made David promise they will visit regularly. I know, Amelia sighed. I know you are right. It is just hard to let go. It is, Grant agreed. But it is also right. We raised them to be independent, to follow their hearts, to build their own lives. And they are doing exactly that. We should be proud. I am proud, Amelia said. I am so proud I could burst. They are wonderful people, both of them. We did good, Grant. We did, he agreed, pulling her close. We did real good. Anna's wedding was in the spring, a joyous affair filled with music and dancing and celebration. David proved himself worthy of the Garrett name by promising to support Anna's dreams of working with horses alongside his veterinary practice. Together, they would split their time between Tucson and the ranch, giving Anna the best of both worlds. And then, just when Amelia and Grant were adjusting to being empty nesters, Rose announced she was pregnant. The news sent the whole family into a flurry of excitement. They were going to be grandparents. Grandparents, Grant said, testing the word. That makes us sound old. We are getting older, Amelia pointed out with a laugh. But I prefer to think of it as earning new titles, Grandma and Grandpa. The baby, a boy they named William after Grant's father, arrived in early spring. Holding her grandson for the first time, Amelia was transported back to the day Gabriel was born, to that overwhelming rush of love and protectiveness. But there was something different too, a sense of continuity, of legacy. This baby carried her blood, and Grant's would grow up on the land they had built together, would be part of the story they had begun that cold night so many years ago. He has your nose, Grant said, peering over her shoulder at the sleeping baby. And your ears, Amelia replied with a grin. Poor kid, Grant joked, and Amelia elbowed him gently in the ribs. Gabriel and Rose were wonderful parents, attentive and loving, and it did Amelia's heart good to see her son with his own child. Anna and David visited as often as they could, and Anna's announcement that she too was expecting came just months after William's birth. The ranch continued to grow and evolve. Gabriel took on more of the day-to-day management, implementing new ideas and techniques he had learned from books and other ranchers. Grant stepped back gradually, content to mentor rather than direct, to advise rather than command. He spent more time with Amelia, taking rides out to their favorite spots, sitting on the porch in the evening, simply enjoying each other's company. We have earned this, Amelia said one lazy afternoon, as they sat under a cottonwood tree, watching the horses graze in the pasture. All those years of hard work, we have earned the right to slow down a bit. I am not complaining, Grant said. Though I do miss having my hands in everything. You can still work when you want to, Amelia pointed out. just not every single day from dawn to dusk. There is a difference between contributing and running yourself into the ground. Grant chuckled. When did you get so wise? I married a good teacher, Amelia replied, leaning against him. They were both in their 50s now, their hair touched with gray, their bodies marked by decades of physical labor. But Amelia had never felt more content, more at peace with her life. She had everything she had ever wanted and things she had not known enough to dream of. Anna's daughter was born in autumn, a beautiful little girl with red hair and green eyes that must have come from somewhere far back in the family tree. They named her Sarah after Grant's first wife, and if there was any awkwardness in that choice, Grant's tears of gratitude banished it immediately. She would have loved this, he said, holding baby Sarah carefully. She would have loved all of this, the family, the ranch, seeing our grandchildren. Thank you, Anna. Thank you for honoring her memory this way. Anna hugged her father tightly. She was part of our story too, Papa. Without her, you would not have been the man you were when Mama found you. She deserves to be remembered. It was true, Amelia knew. Sarah had taught Grant about love and loss, had shaped him into the man who could recognize someone in need and help without hesitation. Amelia had never felt jealous of Grant's first wife, had never seen her as competition. Sarah was part of Grant's history, part of who he was, and Amelia honored that. As their grandchildren grew, the ranch became a gathering place for the whole extended family. Sunday dinners were loud, chaotic affairs, with multiple generations crowded around the table. Holidays were elaborate celebrations that sometimes involved 20 or more people. The house that Amelia and Grant had built together, that had once seemed so spacious, now felt perfectly full. This is what I always wanted, Amelia confided to Grant one Christmas Eve as they watched their family together, Gabriel and Rose, with their 3 children now, Anna and David, with their 2, everyone talking and laughing, and simply being together. This sense of belonging, of being part of something bigger than myself. I never had that growing up. You created it, Grant said simply. You built this family from nothing, Amelia. This is your legacy. Our legacy, she corrected. Everything I built with you. They grew older together, moving through their 60s and into their 70s with grace and gratitude. There were health scares along the way. Grant's heart acting up one year, Amelia's hip replacement the next, but they weathered them together, as they had weathered everything else. The ranch was firmly in Gabriel's capable hands now, though Grant still liked to wander down to the barn most mornings to check on things. Amelia had taken up watercolor painting, discovering a talent she had never known she possessed. Their house was filled with her paintings of the desert, the horses, the family. On their 50th wedding anniversary, the entire family threw them a massive celebration. Grandchildren and great-grandchildren, cousins and friends, people from all over Arizona came to honor their 50 years together. 50 years, Grant said in his speech, looking at Amelia with eyes that still held all the love they had held on their wedding day. 50 years since I found a half-frozen woman in my livery and had the good sense to bring her home. 50 years of partnership, of friendship, of love. Amelia, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. You took a broken man and made him whole. You gave me a family, a purpose, a life worth living, and I will love you for whatever time we have left, and beyond that, into whatever comes next. There was not a dry eye in the room. Amelia stood and took Grant's hand, her own eyes bright with tears. I was running when I came to Fort Bowie, she said, her voice strong despite the emotion, running from a life I did not want towards something I could not even name. And then a blizzard hit and I ended up in a livery stable, sure I was going to die. Instead, I found life. I found love. Grant, you saved me in every way a person can be saved. You gave me respect, freedom, partnership. You taught me that love is not about ownership or obligation, but about choosing each other every single day. And I have chosen you every day for 50 years, and I will choose you every day for as long as I live. They kissed to thunderous applause, and the celebration went on long into the night. The final years of their lives were quiet and peaceful. They moved at a slower pace, spent more time resting, relied more on the younger generations to handle the physical demands of daily life. But they were together, always together, and that was what mattered most. Grant passed first, peacefully in his sleep, at the age of 82. Amelia woke beside him one morning to find he had slipped away during the night, a slight smile on his face. The grief was crushing, even though she had known it was coming, even though they had both lived long, full lives. She lived another 3 years without him, surrounded by family, still painting, still telling stories of the old days to anyone who would listen. But everyone could see that part of her had gone with Grant, that she was just waiting for her turn to follow. When Amelia passed at 85, peacefully in her sleep just as Grant had, the family gathered to lay her to rest beside him on a hill overlooking the ranch they had built together. The headstone read, "Grant and Amelia Garrett, together in life, together in death, together forever." At the funeral, Gabriel stood before the assembled family and friends and told the story one more time. The story of a blizzard and a livery stable, of a cowboy who offered kindness to a stranger, of two people who found each other against all odds and built a life of love and purpose. "They started with nothing but each other," Gabriel said, his voice thick with emotion. "No money, no property, just two people who chose to build something together. And look at what they created, this ranch, this family, this legacy. That is the power of love, of partnership, of simply showing up for each other day after day. They taught us how to live, how to love, how to create something that will outlast us all. And their story will live on in every one of us, in every horse we raise, in every sunset we watch from this land they loved so much." The family gathered at the ranch house afterward, and the grandchildren and great-grandchildren ran through the rooms where Amelia and Grant had raised their family. The horses grazed in the pastures they had built. The desert stretched out forever under the big Arizona sky. And if you listened carefully, you could almost hear it, two voices, young and old at the same time, laughing together in the wind. Together at last, together forever, bound by a love that had started on the coldest night either of them had ever known and had burned warm and bright for more than half a century. The ranch continued, generation after generation, carrying forward the values that Grant and Amelia had instilled: hard work, kindness, integrity, love. Gabriel's children took over when he was ready to retire, and their children would follow after. The Garrett name became synonymous with quality horses and honest dealing, but more than that, with family and loyalty and the kind of deep-rooted love that weathers all storms. And sometimes, on cold winter nights, when the wind howled down from the mountains, people swore they could see two figures walking hand in hand along the fence line, checking on the horses one more time before heading home together. Just a trick of the light, most said, but the family knew better. Grant and Amelia had built something here that transcended death, a love that would echo through the generations, a story that would be told as long as the Garrett family endured. It had all started with a blizzard, a livery stable, and a cowboy who saw a woman in need and offered her warmth, food, and safety. From those simple gestures had grown something miraculous, a partnership that spanned 50 years, a family that numbered in the dozens, a legacy that would endure. It was proof that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change everything, that love can bloom in the most unexpected places, and that when two people commit to building a life together, there is nothing they cannot achieve. The desert sun set slowly over the Garrett ranch, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The horses nickered softly in their stalls. The house stood solid and welcoming, lights glowing warm in the windows. And somewhere in the vast Arizona night, two souls walked together, content at last, their love story complete.